I'm Cezanne.
And I'm John.
And we're rootoftwo, a hybrid design studio based in Southeast Michigan.
We're here to talk about Whithervanes, which is a project which essentially has headless chickens controlled by the climate of fear on the internet.
So for us, this project really begins with the idea that we're all living in an information ghetto. Between the 24-hour news cycle and social media, we have an unprecedented ability to only listen to the news that confirms our own biases. And not only that, the news seems designed to intentionally provoke anxiety and fear. So one of the other things about our design process as a studio is we're really interested in the taken for granted. So whether that's forms or places or content or technology. And for us, we identified the weather vane as an agricultural informatic device, and we really wanted to reconceive it for the 21st century.
So the function of our system is it's basically an array of headless chickens that spin around and change colour. The primary input for that is Reuters news feeds. So as journalists upload stories from around the world, it changes the behaviour of the chickens. And then we also give agency to the public by allowing them to increase the amount of feed in the system and decrease the amount of feed in the system through Twitter. So in 2011, the Electronic Frontier Foundation gave us a brilliant ready-made starter list for keywords from which to do this, using the words that the Homeland Security used to check social media.
And so we were commissioned to produce this project for the 2014 Folkestone Triennial. And Folkestone has actually been experiencing massive social, economic, and political upheaval for the last several decades. That meant for us that we really had to engage all parts of the community, and that included everything from a working class pub to a Michelin-starred restaurant. Folkestone is also the closest point in the UK to France and to the rest of Europe. So we actually wanted to work with members of the community as we were designing the system, and so we built small versions of the Whithervanes project with both community groups and in schools. And by working together, we were actually able to understand what their interests were, what their fears were, what their anxieties were, and those were all uploaded into the system. And this was actually happening before Brexit, and you can actually see the UK Independence Party, or also known as UKIP, and the presence of Eastern and Central Europeans flooding into the UK was already a primary concern. And so all of that actually informed our system as we continued to develop the project for Folkestone.
So in the information centre at the Folkestone Triennial, we gave people the ability to see what was going on in the system. So the real-time news stories as they arose came into the system. It showed what the current threat level was, and it allowed people to tweet by just clicking a button on the screen. And then once they had done that, they were able to see the current status of each chicken in the system. And so, but then from any time and anywhere, anyone using Twitter could use the hashtag skyfalling or keepcan in order to raise or lower the amount of feed in the system. The way that chickens respond to the stories, they're actually calibrated to the neighbourhood in which they're located. So what they do is when the story comes in, they spin around a number of times based on the threat level and change the colour based on the Homeland Security system.
So this project actually garnered a lot of media attention, and actually there was a lot of investment into the local economy in Folkestone. But for us, impact was really discovering the way that the people of Folkestone actually embraced the Whithervanes and took ownership of them. So much so that we actually have two that are part of the permanent Folkestone Artworks collection now.
So we have and the opportunity to do the project again in Miami next year, and we have support from the Knight Foundation to actually develop the kits we used in the community engagement workshops, and to actually make the possibility for people to have their own weather vane, or for other groups to use the system for their own purposes.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Questions from the panel?
Does this system just inform on what the national security threat level is, or is data collected, is data sourced by the participants, the community members, and ultimately it reflects the threat level that they want to have at that moment?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways that we've repurposed the national security threat system. So we've actually borrowed their kind of coloring system that they use, that you always hear kind of communicated to you in airports and in other places. But what's really happening in the system is that each of the weathervanes receive the same news stories, but depending on the neighborhood that they're located in, they're actually calibrated based on kind of the high levels or of anxiety or fears that are taking place in that neighborhood. So while we started with the database from the binder, we actually added at least another like 200 or 300 keywords just for the local community alone. And not only that, those are then calibrated to the neighborhoods that the chickens are in, right? So if you're up where the Martello Tower is, which is the kind of very Napoleonic era looking battlement, that's actually the community that is wealthy. And so they actually indicated through the workshops that we did more fear towards Eastern Europeans, more fear towards kind of insecurity. So when a story comes along that's about UKIP or Brexit, that's going to be very like low for them. But if it's about immigration, it's going to be red, right? So the only place in the system that you can see all of that happening is through the kiosk in the information center or on the website.
So are the inputs, you're talking about neighborhood-specific inputs, or do you need to do the workshop to get the sense, I saw on your list, it was everything from Afghans to dog poo. And so if there is a dog poo epidemic near the Martello Tower, is there some way people, so when they see it, do they have to go online, and how do they know the sort of neighborhood boundaries and things? I mean, I guess I'm asking a number of questions.
Sure. So one of the things that's really interesting about Folkestone is that where the placement of each of the chickens were, you could see maybe 3, right, of the other weathervanes. So you're always operating with imperfect information, and for us that was very intentional because we feel like in this media environment that we're in, we're always operating with imperfect information. And so the idea that somehow you might tweet based on your experience of your local chicken, it actually affects the entire system. So when you're choosing to either raise or lower fear, you're actually choosing to do that on behalf of the entire system. And so that was another one of the things that we wanted to question, was this idea of kind of consensus, right, and what that means to sort of have agency in a system and have that kind of feedback loop be system-wide.
I may not be understanding, so help me out here, but if the weather vane reflects red, right? Doesn't that then reinforce red, right? Reinforces a feeling of threat, and what possibly could be the purpose of that?
So red is
30
the
seconds.
highest amount of fear. So the thing is, at that point, if your local chicken is red, you have the opportunity to turn it green by tweeting "keep calm." So you have the agency then to subtract fear from the system, and it's a choice. I mean, if you keep going, you can't get any higher than red. But the thing is, what it is at that point, it'll be spinning around 5 times. So the chicken will be going even faster, like a chicken with its head cut
And
off.
not only that, you're only able to really know that your chicken is red. The other chickens could be blue or green, right? So your individual choice affects them just as much.
Thank you.